Right, well, we should talk about the tank we've been riding on. It's a Sherman.
Yeah, it is. Yep, and you know, this is the second most produced tank ever in the history of tank warfare, second only to the T-34. About 49,000 of them were built, and then about a further kind of 25,000 built chassis, which were turned into sextons, priests, armoured personnel carriers, all sorts of different things. So incredibly versatile. And what I love about this is the embodiment of the thinking of the Americans.
American mass production manufacture.
Mass production.
Yeah,
and it's got loads of really simple things about it.
Well, what's interesting is, I mean, when you look at the for a start, when you look at the suspension, it's designed to be replaceable.
Exactly that.
So these bogies come off.
Yep.
And go,
couple of
bolts, and then a fresh one could go on. And the wheels are similar. Everything's designed to be replaceable. Even the jaws of the drive wheel here.
Yep.
Are replaceable. So everything can be swapped out. Yeah.
Well, the thing one has to remember is a tank is an incredibly complex thing. So you want to make your complex thing as simple as you possibly can. And it's really interesting when you're sort of contrasting this with, say, German tank production. Totally different mindset.
Yeah.
So a Panther tank, for example, 18 interleaven wheels on one side, 18 on the other. If you want to get to suspension arms, you've got to take all of them off to get to it. This, very sensibly, of course, they've got the suspension bogies on the outside, not on the inside.
But that's also because the Panther's that much heavier, so you're needing to spread the load on the road and all that sort of stuff. So it's a byproduct of wanting to mount a bigger gun and all those things that come with building bigger vehicles. Whereas this is built around 75mm gun. Initially,
yes.
I mean, the thing is this bogie suspension arrangement is the thing that's on the Lee and the Grant as well. So they've run it in, they've tried it out.
Yep, it works.
And it works.
And actually, the same is true of the front of the tank. This is very similar design to the Grant Lee. And under here again, more bolts. You lift that off. There's the gearbox.
Yeah.
Super easy to get to. And again, with the engine at the back, you can replace an engine in a Sherman tank in 2 hours and in the field if you need to. One of the most important things on this tank is this. And these and that. And that means that you can kind of get it from the docks in New York or wherever you want to send it from, or Los Angeles or San Francisco, and put it onto a container ship all the way around. And there's an advantage to having just a 75mm gun there. And it's kind of threefold. And the first one is that it doesn't exceed the length of the tank, which means you can put more of them on Liberty ships, which means you can get more of them
on trains
on trains, and it means you can get more of them onto the battlefield. And numbers have a value all of their own. The second thing about that gun is that because it's only 75mm, it's got a slightly smaller shell than some of the others, like the Panther or the Tiger, which means it's easier to load quicker. It's the only gun that has a gun stabilizing gyro on it, which is a big thing. So it means it's easier and more effective to fire on the move than any other tank. It's also quicker to fire. So it's got an incredible rate of fire. You can fire 20 rounds a minute if you need to. That's extreme, but you can. And actually, the key thing to understand about tank fighting and tank-on-tank fighting is it's not necessarily the biggest gun, it's who can fire first. Because, of course, what happens is you have to have your commander out of the turret. His head and shoulders need to be up, because otherwise you can't see. This is all about seeing. It's about seeing your enemy before he sees you. The moment you get hit, you go into the turret. Yes, you've got periscopes, but they're pretty useless. So you want to be firing first. When you can't see anything, then you're under attack all the time. And this thing can fire round after round after round at the Tiger, at the Panther, or whatever it might be. And that's going to knock it out. You're not trying to destroy a tank necessarily, you're trying to make it no longer function.
You want to stop it.
Stop it, damage it, make the crew put their hand to hock.
There's other things here that are interesting. These rubber tracks, which tells you that the Allies have got rubber.
They've got lots of rubber.
They've got lots and lots of rubber tracks with rubber road wheels. And I mean,
they're not all rubber. They do have metal tracks as well.
I know. But they vary. But
they vary. But again, that gives you the flexibility.
The only thing I don't like about it is the single hatch. If you're in the turret, there's 3 guys in the turret, and obviously, as you said, it's 75mm gun, so it's smaller. So there's more space in the turret. Getting out is pretty difficult. on the Firefly, when they bring which is the British adaptation with the 17-pounder gun.
They put the second hatch in, don't they?
Exactly, they put a second hatch in because the breech is that much bigger, and basically you will not get out of the tank if it brews up. You're not getting out, so they put another hatch in.
Yeah.
And I just sort of think I'd have done that in the first place.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you remember Stan Perry?
Yeah.
Sherwood Rangers, who we talked to, and I remember him saying that when he got to Normandy, what he used to do almost every single day was he'd do exit drills with his crew, and he wouldn't tell them when it was going to happen.
Yeah.
He'd suddenly stop the tank, go, right, everyone out, and they just practice it and practice it and practice it. And he'd go out first, and what would happen is the gunner would shove him up, literally push him out, and then the gunner would get out, and then he'd pull out the load of radio operator.
You've not got long, and
they
they bring in water storage for the ammunition later on in the Normandy campaign, because there's the Sherman famously has the reputation for, you know, the nickname is Ronson, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's some argument that that's actually a post-war nickname.
Yeah, and a Tommy Cooker and all that.
A Tommy Cooker, and it's the thing that's crept into the historiography, you know, by that idea. But they did have a reputation for.
Well, they did, but they're no more likely to brew up than any other tank, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
The main reason they brew up more than any other tank is because there's more of them.
Yeah.
And also, it depends on what time of day you get hit. So if you're just starting out in the morning and you've got a tank full of fuel and full of ammunition that hasn't been used, then it's more likely to go up. I mean, you know, we've talked a bit about Frank Galvin and the Sherwood Rangers getting brewed up on the 16th of August down at Bergeux. Well, the reason that happens is because he hasn't fired a shot at that point. And then he gets hit by a Panzerfaust at kind of point-blank range, and boom, off it goes.
That would set anything off at point-blank range.
Well, pretty much, yeah. But it's because it's stuffed full of fuel and it's stuffed full of ammunition at that point.
There's a thing with the Sherman that never gets remarked on. That if this were a T-34, it'd immediately be a thing people jump on, right? T-34 very famously has a sloping Classis plate.
Yes.
That makes the armour thicker because of the angle of the thickness of the armour. This has got sloping armour.
Yeah.
No one ever goes on about that.
Yeah. And actually, you can see how thick it is here. If you look here, look at the welding. That's what it is. You know,
that's its thickness on the if
there,
you strike it.
It's that thickness.
If you strike it on the horizontal. That's
I don't know how thick that is, but it's pretty thick. You know, the key with all these, you know, it's always a payoff. There's no perfect tank.
Yeah.
You know, and the key thing is the Allies from 1942 onwards, summer of 1942 onwards, are going forwards. So when you're going forwards, you're going to have to cross rivers and ditches and culverts and what have you, and you need to bridge that.
Yeah.
And you need to bridge that quickly. And the easiest way to bridge that is with a Type 30 or a Type 40 Bailey bridge. Now, Type 40 can take 40 tons. This is 30 tons.
Yeah.
So even when you've added stowage, your chicken, you know, piano, whatever it might be, it's still under 40 tons.
Yeah.
And it's all about going forward. But again, you know, it's
well,
they could have had the Pershing in summer of 1944, but they don't because it's too big, too heavy, and
fewer. But
fewer.
I mean, the thing we talked about when we were driving here was like how this has a high profile. It does have a high profile.
It does have a high profile.
But you said, but it's still a lower profile than a Panther. But if this is going forward, if the Panther's got any sense, it's hull down,
and then it's lower,
and it's lower, and it's got somewhere else to go to once it's let off its first couple of rounds, and all that. It's the disadvantage with a high profile is you're going forward. If you're going forward with a high profile, there's your disadvantage.
And the disadvantage of being victorious is that you're going forward.
Yeah.
So you're always going ahead. But on the flip side of that is that the Germans always counterattack. So there is always an opportunity to get them and do it in reverse and be hull down. But I think, for my money, you know, we've talked about this before, but you know, if you're talking about top trumps, and you think about all the different categories, if you added up the total of the Sherwood tank, it would win as best tank. Yeah. It just would. Because of production numbers, you know, that's like 9 out of 10. Yeah. Fear factor's probably only 7. Yeah. You know, that's a bit low. Reliability, that's like 9 out of 10.
Fear factor's the rarity of the Tiger tank puts the fear factor up, right? It's the scarcity.
Yeah, but I think, you know, Tiger's 10 out of 10, isn't it, for fear factor? But, you know, but production numbers, it's probably only 2 or 1 or something.
Yeah. It is. I mean, I am a fan of the Firefly variant, I will say.
Well, you and me the same. But it's worth just having a look around the back of it. I mean, it's, you know, for most tanks, the vulnerable bit is up the backside. But this is where you get into the engine. This engine hatch just here is really, really easy to pick up. It just up it comes. you get a winch in, out comes the engine. It's like super, super easy. Or down here, you know, so it's got lots that's going for it. And the other thing I love about the Sherman tanks is they've got lots of parts which are kind of used in other vehicles. So, you know, they're really sensible. They've got more access to steel and manufacturing and things than any other nation.
Yeah.
And yet they're still sparing. You know, they think about this very, very practically. And as I was saying at the beginning, you know, a tank is a very complicated thing. You want to keep that complicated thing as simple as possible, and this absolutely ticks all those boxes.
I mean, let's just talk about today. Obviously, what you can do, what Jim whose tank this is was telling us that basically you can do kind of 10 miles, and then it's really had enough.
Yeah,
and
this needs to cool down a bit.
It needs to cool down because the tracks get very, very hot on the tarmac. Because you know these aren't supposed to just be on tarmac, or that you stick them on a low loader if you've got a load of miles on tarmac to do, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's quite interesting seeing she was doing what, probably 10 miles an hour, and
we were doing at one point. We must have been doing about 25.
Yeah, I don't know that we were going there. But the point is you get we're getting a sense this morning of actually how slowly a column of armoured vehicles and ancillary vehicles. That's the other thing. That's the other thing to remember is these things don't exist in isolation.
No.
They're literally the point of the spear, and in lots of senses we're getting a feel of that by having all these other vehicles around us, all the stuff to keep it going.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was also saying at one point we weren't going quite quick enough for the engine to sit comfortably.
Yeah. Well, that is a constant problem when you're driving old vehicles, that you find yourself getting stuck betwixt gears.
Yeah.
I mean, I find this in my old Citroen, that you know you're wanting to be in top gear, but it's not quite there, and you're urging the car in front of you, like, go on, get a move on.
Yeah.
Because you're not quite there, and you know that same applies to going up a hill. You know, my Citroen needs a run up. This needs a run up. Any old truck needs a run up. The last thing you want is some old granny going up in her Suzuki. Come on, Gramps.
I mean, the thing to remember though, here we are 80 years later. This wasn't built to last.
No.
This was built with a very short life expectancy. The expectancy that it would either break down ruinously or be destroyed, or be put out of action one way or another. As you say, it doesn't have to be destroyed; it's to be stopped. You know, the turret jammed, the gearbox mashed, and I imagine there's an element of like Trigger's broom, George Washington's axe with this vehicle.
Yeah.
But the engine's from the Second World War, as we understand.
Been restored, and you know, constantly having to be
so it's
bits
kind
replaced, and all
kind
that
of
stuff.
amazing that these are even still going.
For my money, this is still tops.
Yeah, I know. You know, the Comet's a better tank. It's fear of it.